Hey guys, welcome to the When Shooting is Life podcast. Today we got a very special guest. This is Billy Barton. He's a USPSA Grandmaster. Also, he's a very well-known instructor. I had the pleasure of taking Billy's class last week. I had a great time. I learned a ton from him. Me personally, I'm not a great shooter. I've been shooting for about eight something years now, just teaching. But USPSA is new for me, and I've learned a ton from Billy in your class. Billy, why don't you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your shooting career.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Awesome. It was awesome working with you, man. I'm glad you were able to come up for class. Had a great time and put a lot of great work in. My name is Billy Barton. I run a company called Spec Train, just a shooting instructor and a competitive shooter. Really nobody special. I always say, like, I don't have any kind of like crazy background, in anything really shooting related, man. I did in previous lives everything from military sales for a defense contractor to like IT and other tech stuff, but all along the way just had a real passion for shooting since a young age, really. And just have had the time and the resources to travel around the country and train with a bunch of the best shooters in the world, and just finally got had some requests to start sharing what I know back in the day. A similar story to a lot of instructors. And over time, it turned into kind of a full-time gig, which is what I do now. Travel around the country, just putting on shooting classes for folks, hopefully helping folks get better and learn how to train. Kind of my goal. So it's been a blast these last couple years.
Awesome, awesome. So you're full-time shooter instructor now, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Awesome. One of the fun things that we like to do to kind of start off our podcast is we like to start off with kind of five random questions, uh,
Okay.
just to kind of lighten the mood and just make a fun intro. I guess one of our first questions that we got for our random question bucket is, you get to pick your last meal, Billy. What are you picking for your last meal?
It's probably like the same thing I have about every day, man. I'm a steak and potatoes kind of guy. Like it's hard to
Mm.
hard to do anything else. That's my go-to for sure, man.
How do you
Yeah.
like your steak?
Medium rare, somewhere in there. I'm not super picky, but yeah, in there is pretty good.
Oh, perfect. Man after my own heart.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Tools. Are you Milwaukee guy or DeWalt guy or other?
I got started with DeWalt like back
Mhm.
in the day before Milwaukee is nearly
Mhm.
what it is now, right? And so I'm in the ecosystem, and everything from my lawnmower to like my range fan to my screwdrivers run off DeWalt 20 amp hour batteries. So I'm kind of stuck, but Milwaukee's obviously a solid choice these days for sure. My trailer, and people will know they've taken class with me or looked in there, like my trailer is fitted out with the Milwaukee pack out like toolbox. It's just that like, you can't beat that stuff. So I guess some of both.
They get you with the batteries. That's how
Yeah.
they get you.
Yep, for sure.
You know what I think is underrated? Hyper tough from Walmart.
Uh,
Fair
I would say
enough, man.
underrated depending on how you rated them to begin with.
They're pretty good, man. I've been using them for like basically ever since I moved out on my own. They've been
Nice.
working pretty good.
Nice. Yeah,
From,
it does
from
nothing wrong. I mean, I always say, having worked in a few different industries, you always find
Mhm.
out that like there is kind of like the consumer grade stuff works awesome, right? Like when most people are using your drill once a month or whatever, it's like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? When you're using it for 8 hours a day, it probably needs something a little bit different,
Yeah.
But yeah, it all works, man, and that's the main thing.
All right. Question number three. You time travel to the year 1960 and you have to do a rifle match. What rifle are you picking for your 1960 rifle match?
Good grief. That's like 3 years before my dad was born, I think. I have no idea, man. I tell people all the time, I'm not a gun guy, really. What's in the safe is like a bunch of copies
Mhm.
of the same thing for the most part. Like I pick something I like to shoot, and I just get a bunch of copies of it, so I always have at least one that's working. And go to town. But I'm sitting here going, man, what guns were there even in 1963? And I'm not sure I could give you a super good option. I'm sitting here going, man, it was like was the AR even around? Probably not, probably like an M1 or something. I don't even know, dude. I have no idea.
I specifically picked a time period right before the AR came out.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, so I mean, it's probably what? It's probably right before that would be like M1, M14, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. I would assume would be the meta, so to speak. But yeah, I don't even know.
All right,
The correct
hold
answer
up.
is AK.
Uh,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
so he picked the gap after the AK was out, but before the AR. Okay,
You can't
got it.
help it.
I assumed you would be correct if that was out. Yeah, 100%. No disagreements there.
Eh, M1 carbine's also acceptable. Oh, go ahead, Koo.
Hmm.
So, okay, so I was gonna ask you guys, is it pronounced as carbine or carbine?
Depends. In the US, we pronounce it carbine. If you watch the Royal Armories guy in the UK, he pronounces it carbine.
Yep,
Um,
I've noticed that as well. Like the British, I
yeah.
think that is generally the British pronunciation.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's probably why there's confusion.
Okay, so I'm assuming it's carbine then, since we're Americans.
For us.
All
I
right.
won't roast you either way. I think either's okay.
All right. So let's get into a little bit of Hollywood here. Okay.
Oh shoot.
You have to fight John Wick, and you get to pick one gun. What gun are you picking to fight John Wick?
Man, probably like and this is way outside of my expertise, but something I could touch him with from a very long way away, I think would be the move, some kind of AI like 338 Lapua or something, where he never has a chance to see me coming would be the move, I think.
Also, that one movie came out, so I think if you're like a 100-pound girl, you have a pretty good chance.
Haven't seen it, I wouldn't know.
Me either. Koo, have you watched the ballerina movie yet?
Nah, it looks pretty stupid.
I know. I watched the trailer. I watched like her fighting. I'm like, yeah, you can tell. You can tell she's acting. He
Yeah,
like watching his videos of him training with Taryn and just the way like he throws punches. Like he really puts his heart into it. But if you don't really do that, because he has a long career of doing that, it's kind of
right,
hard to really pick up on that in like maybe 6 months.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's been cool over the last few years. See, several people. I mean, I'd put like Chris Pratt in that category, and some others that like really put some effort into that, obviously, and gun guys that you know how it is. You can tell someone's like comfortability, behind the gun as soon as they pick one up, and it's cool to we definitely appreciate that for sure. When you can tell that they've put the effort in. That's always nice.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right, Koo, floor is yours. Let's go ahead and fire off some real questions.
Hold on, man, you skipped one.
Which one do we skip?
If okay, I'll read it. So if Keltec sponsor
Oh, I
you,
did. Oh, yeah, yeah, I did skip one. This one was fun.
if Keltec was to sponsor you as a full-time athlete shooter, but you have to use their gun, would you take it?
No. No,
Damn.
no, I have some pretty hard set rules about sponsorship stuff. It's like, especially for me as a firearms instructor, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I think your most as an instructor, and your most valuable asset has got to be your reputation, right? And really the trust, I think, that you're not selling your soul and like what you're saying you actually believe in and all that kind of stuff. So, and my rule for sponsorships is pretty straightforward. Like I don't if people want to send me stuff, fine, I'll look at it, whatever. But in terms of like any kind of actual working relationship, like unless I'm already using your product, it's already a part of what I use. I know that it's good. It's something that probably something I'm recommending anyway, right? Whether you pay me or not. It's just not a thing for me, right? Not gonna happen. Um, it's not worth it. So that's just kind of how I kind of approach those things.
I think that's a definitely a solid approach, especially with like social media nowadays. Anybody who will sponsor someone, they'll end up taking those, even though it's kind of like the worst companies. I have words about like USCCA, for example, but yeah. But I will say about Keltec, people often complain that there's really no gun innovation in the gun space, but Keltec makes fun stuff. It may not be the most reliable stuff, but it's fun stuff that they're pumping out.
Yeah, it's interesting at the very
Yeah.
least, right? Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, Q.
All
Floor
right.
is yours.
Okay, so our first question is can you tell us more about your journey in becoming a grandmaster level shooter?
Sure. Yeah, it was probably somewhat atypical in that, I grew up in my shooting career training strictly from a self-defense, concealed carry type of mindset, right? That's still like the motivating factor for me to be a shooter in the first place to this day. But, I took kind of the traditional journey, I think, of training with, your military and law enforcement guys and so forth. But I think I was lucky enough to get into it at a time where even with that, some of the early guys I trained with at least had a performance mindset. Like I didn't by the time I came in, everyone was using timers already, like that kind of thing, So it was always speed and accuracy from the very beginning, movement, and constantly pushing those limits and so forth. And so I'm fortunate I came in at that time, I guess, and had some exposure to the right people.
Do you mind me asking
Um,
what year that was?
so I'm 30, I'm 31. So I technically got my first handgun, I think, when I was 19. So that's 12 years ago. Um, so, but even before that, before I even had, I got really interested in guns, even before I was like old enough to like buy a handgun, that kind of thing. And so I was like, I was consuming all of the Magpul Dynamics videos and the Sage Dynamics stuff, and just anything to get my hands on. There was only so much on the internet at the time. YouTube was kind of newer, I guess. And there wasn't that many gun, or I should say, there wasn't that many training related channels, more specifically. Um, but I mean, even look, I mean, how much of the stuff in like the Magpul Dynamics DVDs do I agree with today? Like, I don't know, that's somewhat questionable, right? But I was sitting there at the time going, okay, these guys are doing stuff with guns that I didn't know happened outside of the John Wick movies, right? Like this is like real life stuff we're doing with guns. That's pretty cool. I want to learn how to do that. And that really honestly got me interested in training as well. I mean, I still credit those videos to this day, for almost like inventing the career path that I'm in terms of, starting the training space. But so yeah, it's pretty cool. And then man, I kept doing that. And then honestly, like so the way that competition really got on my radar and USPSA specifically is like, man, you train in that like tactical world for so long, and I was training on a pretty heavy personal schedule, constantly trying to get better. Get to this point where like all the tactical guys you go and train with, like you're out shooting them in class, right? And therefore they have like nothing to say to you for 2 days, right? They just are ignoring you, and you're like, okay, I got nothing out of this, however much money you spent for 2 days and time spent and so forth. I'm like, where can I find dudes that are actually better, And so I start training with folks from that, um, either competitors or like a competition background. I mean, this was before a lot of top competitors were teaching, even really, I feel like. And so I didn't even know who to go to. One of the first guys came on my radar was Scott, with Modern Samurai Project. And I go and take that class a couple days, and I get done, and it's like, are you training with anybody who's better than you are? And I was like, no, I ran out of those a while ago, right? And he's like, you should go shoot competition. And I said, really? He's like, yes. He's like, I was like, why? He's like, you will find people there that are better than you are. And I was like, really? I'm like, in the local area? He's like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, word, and I went and just got hooked, man. Again, it's just a world that when you're not, a lot of folks, just even like serious shooters, just don't know about it, right? Don't really know what that's like or have much exposure to it. But man, you show up and it's just all normal people, from your local area, and like you see like the local plumber and his 15-year-old daughter are just like smoking you, right? And just going crazy. And just levels of speed and accuracy that you wouldn't, think were possible from normal people. And I was, totally hooked, right? And so I had but at that point I was, I don't know, 6, 7 years, something like that into it. I had a pretty decent pre-established skill set. I started and realized that none of my gear was like legal for carry optics. I showed up with at the time a light bearing holster. Like I didn't even have any non-light bearing holsters, and at the time that wasn't legal. It is now, so you don't have to worry about it, which is cool. I had a magwell on my gun. I had at the time I was shooting actually a polymer 80 frame that I like milled myself, which at the time wasn't on the list. It wasn't legal and that kind of thing. So I was like, I didn't have anything. So it took me once I knew I wanted to do it though. So it took, I don't know, 6 months or something, and got some different gear and got squared away. And I came back. It's funny, some folks I made when I came back, I went from unclassified to master class in just under 6 months. which some folks are like impressed by, but I'm like, man, it's not as impressive when I tell you I shot 32 matches in that 6 month period. Like I just went crazy, it was just like a condensed schedule, just really got hooked and kind of went after it and just have stuck with it ever since and kept training and kept trying to get better. And I don't know, 21 months after I started, finally that gem mark, I was trying to make a little bit faster run at it, but like so I made master class in January of 2020. And that was obviously right before like the COVID lockdowns and all the matches got shut down for a while and there was like nowhere to go shoot. You couldn't get ammo even if you had somewhere to go shoot and all that kind of stuff. So threw a bit of a wrench in the journey there for sure. But we came back and made it happen the following year. So yeah, it's been after it ever since.
Awesome. Awesome. So are there like any notable championships or anything that you've won? Things or events that you particularly enjoyed in your shooting journey?
Yeah, won a few. Like the current North Carolina state champion. I've won a few majors here and there, nothing too crazy. Probably honestly, like my claim to fame, which is not even like a super the one I'm probably the most proud of, which isn't a super high placement, really, was like I came in, I think, right at 90% of Eric Graffel at Carry Optics Nationals. I forget the exact placement. I know it was like top 25 in the country, that kind of thing. But coming in that close to the greatest of all time was pretty cool. But yeah, not haven't to be totally honest, I'm not like winning all the area matches or any of that kind of thing, quite yet. But definitely some podium finishes here and there and that kind of thing. And this is really honestly my first year, obviously working full time before this, and like all my time off was like traveling to do classes. Now I'm doing it full time. I'm actually like shooting majors across the country really for kind of the first time this year. So we're on the grind for sure and enjoying a lot of it. Shot Dragons Cup, was absolutely awesome this year. Just got back from Area 1 last weekend, and we've got nationals coming up in a few weeks. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice. Nice.
All right. So speaking of Eric Garfield, why do you think
Yeah,
he's so dominant in this sport?
that's a great question. It's a really good question. There's
Oh, actually, really quick. So,
yeah.
since we do like to target our podcast towards people who are getting into the sport,
Mhm.
tell us, what do you know about him? What's a little bit of his background that you know, and what are your thoughts on why he's always like number one in so many of the events?
Got it. Yeah, no, that's actually really good. Even folks that are, there's a lot of GMs, frankly, in the
Mhm.
America that probably don't know much about Eric Raffel, right? Because he's from France, of all places, which you would not expect like super great shooters to be from France. But sure enough, uh, probably the greatest performance, like practical shooter of all time, Eric Raffel is in fact from France. And there's actually quite a few super high level shooters from around the world. In fact, when Eric came over here for Caps Lat Nationals last year. He brought some of the Team CZ shooters with him. I think one was from the Philippines, one was like from Russia or something, maybe. Those guys placed top three. Not a single American beat one of those guys, which again is not what you would expect, right? You would think, hey, shooting is what we do, man. We should be the best at this. But why are they so good? It's a really good question. Talent's some of that X factor. People have lots of theories about it. But sometimes it's hard to put your finger on exactly, why is so and so as good as they are. I noticed a few things um about super high level performers in the shooting sports. Like one of the things you'll find commonly, again, none of this is universal. Some you'll find super commonly is that a lot of them start very, very young, right? Guy like Christian Seiler starting, early teens, that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, but yes, by the time he was in his early 20s, he was like super, super good. But he'd been shooting matches around the country for 10 years by that point. And I think when you start when you're really, really young, obviously, like, man, it sets you up for success in a way that's really hard to replicate later in life, just because you learn so much better and so much faster, and you're so much more pliable and stuff when you're that age. So starting young, I think, is a big thing. Eric's been at it for a very long time, been winning championships for obviously a super, super long time. And I think one of the big things you'll notice as well, it sets apart the top echelons of shooters, honestly, is to put it simply, the amount of work they put in, but that's really a huge like time and resource factor, right? So a guy like Eric that's going to be shooting, 1,500 rounds a day, leading up to the world shoot. Like I can't do that. Right? Like most shooters can't do that, right? And I genuinely think when you look at, what at nationals as an example separates the guys like the really good GMs that are in that 90 to 95% bracket versus that 95 to 100% bracket, you notice it's like the pro sponsored shooters that have those resources to train at a level that the guys that are a few points lower just don't have. And the level of consistency you get from that kind of training is just really, really huge, right? And so Eric has a couple really unique, I think, advantages in that sense. CZ is really maybe the only like USPSA centric company in the world that like really turns their shooters into professional shooters. I mean, guys like, think about Glock, one of the biggest companies. Like, I mean, Shane Coley, the team captain, like has a job at Glock. He doesn't just go shoot every day, right? The way the CZ guys do. So it is a different thing when you're on Team CZ. But like Eric, he's got that basically private training facility there where he lives. It's all indoors. So like months before the world shoot, which last time was in Thailand, right? So a whole different time zone than like almost all the shooters are used to. I mean, Eric, like 2 months before the world shoot, just switched to the Thailand time zone and would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go train at his indoor range, right? And just shooting at the same time zone he's going to shoot for world shoot. Like nobody can do that, right? So, yeah, I think that's part of it for sure. But you do have to wonder, okay, is there, with all those excuses, right? What exactly is that X factor that some people have that just really makes them as dominant as they are? And I'm not sure any of us can really answer that for sure. If I knew, I would be doing that, for sure.
Would would you say like the just the money is a big part of it? Because
Mhm.
I was talking to Ku about this that Eric Griffel, he's different, like you were talking about, that he's more of like an actually full-time athlete, more
Right.
like LeBron James or like Michael Phelps, where all they do is their sport. They're
Yep.
not really going and paying bills by teaching how like many of the GMs like you guys are.
Yeah. 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 No, again, I think that's a huge factor. I saw it last year for sure. I mean, last year, so I basically started full time shooting first of last year, right? So I'm a couple years into it now. And so last year before nationals was my first year. I was able to take 3 weeks off before nationals and shoot 300 to 500 rounds a day leading up to the match. Sure enough, my best nationals ever. Like, no surprise, right? Like the ability to kind of do that and put that kind of work in, like it pays off in terms of results. And so, but man, I'm always like super impressed as well. And you look at a guy like a Brantley Merriam, right? 2 years ago at Carry Optics, before he was even in the shooting industry at all. I mean, just almost all dry fire got to, I think, fourth at Carry Optics Nationals. Like you'll see that every once in a while. You're like, man, that's super, super impressive, right? Super impressive. But, you know, uh, as a whole, yeah, I think those resources to be able to actually put that volume of work in is huge for sure.
If Team CZ offered you a spot, would you take it?
Yeah, probably, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have no qualms about that at all.
Do you like the Shadow too? Would you shoot one?
It's a great gun. It's a great gun. There's so much there. Like the thing with these days is there's so many great guns, right? So it's
Mhm.
not about like I don't shoot a Shadow 2 because it's bad. It's like, okay, I have certain personal preference things. I think the Shadow 2 really is super optimal for our game. Like there's a lot of pros to it. Is that the gun that I want to put in my pants every day? Not so much, right? So I choose to try to compete with the same gun that I carry, right? And choose one gun for everything, and that's great. So kind of a more duty style striker fired pistol, super great for that. But as far as just a competition like performance gun, I mean the Shadow 2s are great. I think I really think that pretty much the only real con, they have a super tight magwell. All right, so they're challenging to reload for sure, and beyond that, it's just like there's minor annoyances. Like, man, you got to take the dot off to clean the extractor out or whatever. Like, there's little things like that that are kind of annoying. But I mean, in terms of how they shoot, and the features and stuff, I mean, yeah, they're super great guns.
Yeah, I've pretty much been a Glock guy for most of my shooting career. Ku actually
Yeah,
just sold me his Shadow 2, and I got a chance to
nice.
shoot it yesterday. And I was practicing scoop draw, so I have this video of me practicing scoop draw just before my learner class, and Yeah, that gun wants to run. It's a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I really appreciate what you said that, coming from that background of, really being focused on the defensive shooting part of being out able to actually carry what you run. A lot of guys don't do that. And a lot of them think that it's limiting, but it's actually kind of refreshing to hear you say that you can take that same type of gun that you conceal carry and actually run it very well at a high level at a match.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's become really proven over the
Mhm.
and part of that, I mean, I think there were certain biases that were kind of carried into carry optics. Carry optics is a very new kind of division, right? I mean, before that, in divisions like limited or open, like it was just understood, like, hey, you got to have a race gun to be able to perform, right? And I think that people took some of those ideas into a division like carry optics, where it's actually turns out not so much the case, right? Are there advantages and disadvantages to certain gear? For sure. But again, I'll bring up Brentley Merriam again as a guy who shoots a Glock 17 and even more like just normal gun than I do, right? And absolutely dominates at the highest levels. Hasn't actually like won nationals yet, but he's like very, very close, right? Definitely winning area matches and that kind of things with just a literally a stock Glock with a trigger in it. And it's like, yeah, you can absolutely perform at the level. My buddies like Donovan Moore and Buck Lawler, again, doing super great at majors from concealment with their M&Ps. Like that's awesome. That's baller. That's really, really cool, right? So I love to see those things, right? For folks that are interested in competing with their either straight up carry gear or at least their carry gun. Like, yes, you can absolutely do that, and be competitive at a really high level for sure.
Really quick tangent off of our question list. So we're talking about the Shadow 2, right? And so for our viewers who don't know what that is, that's a competition pistol, very heavy gun, but really good shooter. Billy, why don't you tell us a little bit about the gun that you're currently competing with?
Sure. So I compete with a Zev OZ9. Got a great relationship with Zev, awesome company. Was using a bunch of stuff from them before I ever had that relationship, though. Like I told you, my rules about sponsorships. So my Glock was kind of loaded with Zev stuff. Before I ever started shooting the OZ9, when the OZ9 came out, they gave us an opportunity to send us a few of them, let try them out. And I was like, yes, definitely, because I wanted one anyway. And it's a great gun. It is, kind of Glock-ish. Like it looks a whole lot like a Glock. There's a couple kind of key differentiating factors. So it does have a steel chassis, a steel frame on the inside, so that kind of adds some weight, changes the balance up, gives you way more like slide to rail contact surface area, takes some of that like Glock flex out and that kind of thing. Also, it gives you interchangeable grip modules, so you can swap out, grips and stuff, which is pretty cool. But it's just all around like a solid striker fired pistol. It's kind of like already tricked out. So I pretty much, last year at Nationals, literally was shooting a bone stock gun out of the box. Like I just don't find the need to change anything really about that gun to run them. So that's what's cool about it for me. Like it just comes ready to go. Great trigger, great, everything.
How many high level GMs would you say are running Glocks like at that very top level? I know there's like Tyler Messenheimer.
More and
Um,
more every year. More and
yeah.
more every year. I mean, so obviously you have, Team Glock.
Mhm.
By the way, for those you don't know, like Morgan Leonhardt, I narrowly escaped getting beat by her at Area 1. To be fair, my back was thrown out, but she almost got me. Like she's doing great on Team Glock. Obviously Shane shoots for Glock as well. Outside of that, yep, Tyler obviously doing really, really great with the Glock. I mentioned Brentley Miriam already. You've got guys like Eric Shaw, who's crushing it right now, who's LE out of Nashville that competes with his duty gear at nationals and just absolutely crushes with a Glock. I mean, I'm sure the list goes on. Those are the main guys that are coming to mind right off. But yeah, quite a few.
Nice. We were kind of poking fun at Kue in our own little shooting group because this year Kue was supposed to go all Glock, but then just like a couple weeks ago he switched to Canic.
Oh no. No,
So
ain't nothing
the
wrong with that.
so the reason why, okay, so I started with Glock and then I went to Shadow 2 and then
Okay.
I went back to a Glock. Not because the Shadow 2 sucks. It's just that I could never get a good grip on the Shadow 2. It just
Okay.
doesn't fit well in my hand.
Sure.
So I went back to a Glock and then I found out that my modified Glock doesn't work with my reloads. And
Oh,
then I got a buddy, he sold his Canic Rival for a very good price. And I bought it, I shot it. It was amazing. So that's why I'm shooting the Canic Rival now.
fair enough, man. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, find something you like. I mean,
Yeah.
look, do I think that um with a proper training and understanding the fundamentals, you should be able to pick up, any gun and make it run. Yes. But you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to put that work in. Like if you find something that just works for you out the gate and is easy for you to shoot and works well, like there's nothing wrong with that, man. Shoot with you like. There's no issue there at all.
Yeah, like for the Shadow 2, I could definitely shoot faster
Yeah,
and be more comfortable, but I don't know, I just couldn't get a good grip on it. Like every time when I draw, the gun just doesn't fit well in my hand.
fair enough.
So I even though I may shoot faster and go faster with a Shadow 2, um I can't really get my hits compared if I was to shoot a Glock 17.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me with like the Walther steel frame as an
Yeah.
example. A great gun. I won one
Yeah.
at nationals. I had it for a week and sold it immediately. It just does not fit my hands at all.
Yeah.
Like if I grip that gun and put my support hand on it, like where I would want to put
Mhm.
it, like and I go try to put my firing hand on it, there's like nowhere for my right thumb to like fit in between the beaver tail and my support hand. I'm like, this just it is not a big enough grip for my hands, right? So yeah, that's part of it. You'll run into that sometimes for sure.
Do you
Yeah,
think Oh
oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Coop.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Christian.
Oh, no, no, no. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh,
I've been talking. You go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, do you think you could shoot a Glock as good as the Zev?
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I've done that. It's so funny you say that, right? So I mean, there's like I'll get basically two fields of comments on the gram, right? When I do stuff, with the Zev, when I try to say that the Zev is like a good gun, the comment is flooded with it's just a Gucci Glock they charge too much money for, right? And then whenever I do something cool with shooting, they're like, you couldn't do that with a Glock, it's like so it's both things that you get. Last year I did that. I did like the 4x4. You may remember, like there was just four shots from the draw in under a second. Immediately, I had an instructor buddy of mine reach out that was like, "Yep, I tried this at the range today, and I can confirm a Glock won't do that." And I was like, "Won't do what? Like, what are you talking about?" I was like, I knew it wasn't true. Go to the range the next day. I literally bought. I didn't even have one. Went and bought a stock Glock 19 just to like make some of those videos like this.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do this with anything, and I not only did it, I literally had a .09 split, I think, in that video with a stock Glock trigger. I'm like, it is not the gun, guys. Like, yes, you can run it at a high level, right? So it's one of those things where, look, as an example, does having a better trigger in the gun, make shooting 35-yard partials like we saw at nationals last year like easier? Yes, for sure. Does it mean you can't train and do the same thing with a Glock? No, I would never say that. But gear definitely does, add or remove obstacles to performance, right? It can make certain things easier. You're never gonna buy skill, but it can make certain things easier for sure. And there's nothing wrong, I think, with admitting that. So it's not gonna make you a better shooter to get a better gun or a different gear or whatever. Like you still have to learn how to do the thing and put the work in and build that skill. But yeah, it can make certain gear can make certain things easier for sure. No doubt about it.
You were gonna say something, Christian?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was just kind of piggyback off of that idea because I know I think it was like last week, Hwansik Kim, he won Area 1 limited optics with a Shadow 2. And
Yep.
Shadow 2 is not that's more of a carry optics type of gun. And so he's
Yep.
competing with guns that are like 2 to 6 times more expensive, and he's still able to win. And so, at that higher level, absolutely, like you said, the equipment matters a little bit less, and your skill is really kind of what shines through.
Yeah, I shot. It's when I went down and shot the Caribbean Open this year in Puerto Rico. And it's a weird match, kind of a hybrid match. So they have some divisions that are ported mostly straight from IPSC, which my guns, for whatever reason, are not IPSC legal because I think they're too big. Like a Glock 34, you can't shoot in production optics because it's too long and doesn't fit in the box or something. I don't know. You have to shoot a Glock 17. Anyway, so but they ported limited optics straight into that match with all USPSA rules. I was like, word, I'm just gonna go shoot limited optics, right? Didn't even put a mag on my gun, just missed shot. I don't think. I just shot with my normal OZ9, right? Didn't win. I came in second. Unfortunately, Ashton got me, but I beat him. I beat him in his, $10,000 2011 in the shoot off. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think totally. There's especially in some of those kind of divisions, there is a lot of times misconceptions about what are really the advantages. Like, what is shooting a 2011 versus a striker fired gun? Like, what really is the difference? Like, and the reality is there's pros and cons, and it depends on what you're doing. right? I don't know anybody that can draw a 2011 faster than I can draw a Glock. Not a single person alive, right? Like why? I mean, partially because like I think there is an advantage to drawing a gun that doesn't have that big old beaver tail when you're talking about like draw to first shot speed, right? So like that's an advantage, right? We talk about transitions. It's like, okay, when I have a gun that's twice the weight, like it's a little bit harder to get that thing to slow down on a wide transition and actually stop with precision in the middle of a target. Now, once I get it parked there, the heavy gun's going to shoot nicer, you know? So there's pros and cons to all of it. Obviously, that 2011 trigger probably way nicer than mine, right? But it all just depends what you're looking at, what the kind of the exercise is, which one's going to kind of be optimal. But people have this idea that, oh, if you got a 2011, like everyone else is just, way left in the dust. And it's like, oh, it's not, it's not actually reality, you know?
Speaking of equipment, how much does equipment matter in competition shooting?
I'll tell you where it matters a lot. It's got to work. It's got to work, man. See it all the time. I mean, I've obviously been unfortunate enough to have a few gear issues in my time. I actually had an out of battery detonation 1 year in a major. Guess what?
Oop.
That stage is zeroed. That's an extreme example, right? But man, you're having a bunch of malfunctions and stuff, like whatever it is. There doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are, you're not gonna win. It's gonna kill your score. So, yeah, it's funny because you hear people talk about duty grade as if it's super reliable, and it all like they assume competition guns like don't work. It's like, man, we wouldn't be shooting them if they didn't work in matches. Like, no, that's I'm not gonna risk that. Everyone has issues, obviously, but um, yeah, that's the biggest thing to me, and it's got to be reliable, right? Now, gear shorts matter, man. If you're gonna go shoot open, like yeah, shooting a Glock open gun is a disadvantage, right? Like for sure. But that's the cool thing to me about divisions like carry optics, even production, that kind of thing. Yeah, you can go pick up a $500-600 gun and put it in a holster and run it, and you are good to go, man. Like you're really not at any kind of a significant disadvantage in those kind of divisions, just running regular old duty gear, and so that's to me what's really cool about those divisions.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you because you know Tim Dundery, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so so I might sound ignorant for saying this. I'm from Minnesota also, so I shoot with Tim
yeah,
Dundery a lot. And I
cool.
was looking at his competition belt, right? And he has these mag holster I think the brand is called Krydex. It's like for airsoft. And
Okay.
I was like, so this guy is running like he's a GM. He's running with these like cheap mag holster, and it's just funny because he runs so well with them.
Yeah,
So yeah, I definitely agree with you that equipment it 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 matters if it's reliable, if it's not
yes.
reliable, but at the end of the day, it really depends on the shooter.
Yeah, it's like so
Yeah.
much of it's like like whoever came up with the term race holster was an absolute genius, right? Those holsters are not faster,
Yeah.
right? Like the only reason you use a race holster is because you have no other choice. Like you've got a frame mounted optic and you've got like the thumb rest or whatever, and so like a regular holster won't fit your gun. But I see guys, trying to like make a race holster work with a Glock or whatever. I'm like, why? Why? Those are terrible holsters. Like use a real holster, dude. But it's called a race holster, so it's got to be
Yeah.
faster. There's like so many examples of that where like there's this super Gucci expensive gear that is just not actually as good. People will go for it, right? Trying to buy that performance, right? You can't do it. You can't do it.
Koo, don't make fun of my Krydex mag holsters.
Oh no.
I wanted
Hey,
to test the cheap stuff before I put down the dollars for some good stuff.
Nice.
hey, don't feel
Nothing wrong
bad,
with
man.
that.
I started with them too. Hey, I'm still running I'm still running Black Scorpion gear, man. Till this day, they
Nothing wrong with
work.
that.
They
Nothing wrong with
work.
that. I've
If it
heard
works
nothing
for
but good
Tim,
things.
if it works for
Yeah.
Tim, I can do it too.
I
Yeah.
like for me, I just don't. I can't justify paying like $40 for a mag holster.
Sure.
I just can't like it because at the end of the day, it's just like it's the same. It's the same thing. Like you just draw and the reload is the same, unless there might be a difference.
Or like a lot of times more expensive stuff is worse. Like this is what I found coming in kind of obviously I didn't come from a competition background. So at the time, like when I started shooting carry optics, I was shooting like I had T-Rex arms, right? Like Mars pouches, right? And it's like, those are fantastic. They have the great funnel on top that makes it really easy. Like if you're doing a table start or whatever, to shove a magazine back in the pouch and that kind of thing. You go get like a double alpha or whatever, and it's like a freaking Shadow 2 magwell. Like there's no ramp on that thing at all. I'm like, okay, these are $100 and they are objectively worse. Like, and they have no support, compared to like T-Rex arms or whatever, I'm like, this is just not better. People, I'm not trying to crap on all kinds of gear, but like again, like the expensive like Gucci stuff, like oftentimes not only is not, better, but it's like not even as good as like the
Yeah.
cheap stuff to your point. So yeah, that's a thing for sure.
Kind of a side tangent. So when you were teaching your class, I saw that you had some Glock PMags. I feel like I am the only one who could get Glock PMags to work without issue. What
Okay.
are your thoughts on Glock PMags?
I don't know, man. I've definitely heard some reports, right? So I ran PMags almost exclusively
Same,
before I went into competition, right? Because man,
same.
you can get those like 21 round magazines for like $17 or whatever. I'm like, this is money in the bank right here. This is great. Never had a single problem. And I finally put out a video about it on kind of my secondary YouTube channel like years ago, and people are in the comments saying they're not working. I'm like, fair enough, right? I believe you, right? But I've literally never, I was using them today. Never seen a problem. The only thing I ever found that was interesting about them, because they don't have the actual steel like sleeve like a Glock Mac does, when you load them to full capacity, like the tube definitely bulges a little bit, right? So now depending on what gun you're running it in, um, like if it's a full mag, it may not drop free when you go to reload. That's like the only thing that I ever noticed with it. But from like it's funny, I kind of brought up the point people thought it was crazy. From like for a competition shooter, I can see that as a problem because if you ever did have to like reload after shooting 4 rounds or whatever, you want your mag to drop out. From like a competition for like more of a tactical guy, like you're never gonna reload probably after shooting 2 rounds, or it's gonna be a tactical reload. So like you don't need your mag to drop free when it's full. And if you ever did like accidentally bump your mag release like on the draw or whatever, it'd be kind of nice if your mag didn't fall out of the gun accidentally. I'm like, it's almost a feature, It's not even like a problem. It's almost like a feature. But yeah, I've had basically no issues with those at all.
Thank you for helping me to justify my purchase of more Glock PMags. I've probably put like 50, 60,000 rounds through exclusively the PMags,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm the only one on the internet who doesn't have problems with it. But
If they
now I
if
have
they don't
confirmation
if
from
they
you.
work, man, especially as a
Mhm.
training mag, like they're
Yeah.
hard. I'll be honest, my carry mag is a P mag to this day. Like the one that's at the 17 like flush fit that's actually in the gun to this day is a PMAG. I mean, I trust them 100%. In my guns, right, with my ammo, I got zero issues. I hear other people saying they have issues. Like, I don't know if it's ammo. I don't know if they're full of sand. I don't know what the problem is, but yeah, I've had literally never had a magazine related issue in a PMAG ever. So, for what it's worth.
So
I think it's
yeah.
PSA daggers. I hear the
Uh,
most complaints from PSA daggers.
maybe, maybe.
Go ahead, Coop.
I was gonna say, so speaking of like tactical stuff, do you think there's a difference between tactical shooting and competition shooting?
I mean, shooting, no, right? I mean, there's a huge difference before and after the shooting. I say all the time. I think this may be a quote from my buddy Matt Prank. I can't remember, but the tactics or this all the stuff that happens before and after the shooting. Like that the context, like that's obviously different, and that's stuff that people need to learn. I think for sure. Once it comes time to do the shooting, like getting rounds accurately on target in a hurry, like that's all hard skills, and those are the same. Like there's essentially no difference. Again, there may be some context things, like I needed to know how to shoot with a weapon light or whatever, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, the shooting in my book for sure.
Yeah, I've had guys in the defensive instructor type of circle get upset at me if we're running drills like too quickly. And they're like, "Oh, the skills are different." But I'm like, "No, it's the same skills. It's just run at a higher performance level." And Q and I we took a lot from your interview with Pranka that you did a little while ago. I know that you
Yeah.
still hang out with him, do stuff with him, but yeah, there's we've got buddies who, they think there's a huge gap between defensive shooting and competitions shooting. But like you said, those core skills, that core competency, that's kind of the backbone that we build everything off of.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's like, man, yeah, guess, yeah, you don't have to do things that fast always in real life. Like you probably, you may, unless you're Matt, you may not be running through the house at that pace, right? But it's like, man, if you can do the thing fast and you have the opportunity to slow down, that's easy, no problem. What we see way more commonly is guys getting called to do things on the street at a level of speed they have never before experienced, and you're not going to learn how to do it faster, like in the moment, right? Like that's not going to go well. So yeah, I would rather push performance to the highest level we possibly can. And then again, like yeah, if you have an opportunity to slow down, be more careful, take your time, great. Honestly, that's a luxury. Like I'll take that for sure. But learn how to do it fast, and then backing off and being more precise becomes super super easy. I found the same thing. You saw how we started the class, with trigger control at speed. That's the first thing I do. People ask me all the time, like, if you're doing that with a brand new shooter, would you start with like slow fire, like bullseye shooting or whatever? And it's like, no. Because what I always find is, man, you start somebody on bullseye shooting, like you're not going to get them to shoot a clean bullseye for like days. You know what I mean? But if you start them with trigger control at speed and they learn how to smash the trigger and still hit stuff, and then you allow them to be careful, they got no problem stacking them in the X ring, right? So yeah, starting with the fast stuff and learning how to have control at that threshold, like when you can back it off, like it just becomes so much easier. Yeah, at least that's my opinion.
And you guys should go watch Billy's class that he uploaded on his Spectring channel. I'm featured in the background a little bit, so you guys will probably
Hey,
see me.
nice.
But I would say that yeah, trigger control at speed. So essentially what we're doing is we're just dry fire a gun pointing at the target, and instead of doing like the slow traditional trigger press, we're just slamming it. And what we're
Hmm.
doing essentially, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you're just watching that dot or those sights and seeing what they're doing. And for me personally, mine was doing more of like a J shape. And then
Yep.
what you were talking about is, that kind of helps you to understand, okay, well, maybe I need to apply a little bit more pressure in here because you said some really, really important things that I learned in your classes that, grip is such an individual thing that, everybody kind of grips differently. Everybody's hands are shaped differently. The guns are shaped differently. So there's not a one size fit all solution when it comes to gripping the gun. And that really helped me a lot because, when I teach like my level one pistol stuff, that's the way I teach is, I was always taught that, you teach your new shooters just that slow trigger press, but then that's not what defensive shootings look like, right? And so why are we bothering to teach new shooters that slow trigger press? If in a life or death situation, I don't want you to default to that. I want you to, get good shots quickly on target.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, when you rely on that trigger press, right? And you've got somebody who's trying to press, slowly and they still aren't hitting the right spot, what's the fix? Well, go even slower. And it's like, okay, but did that actually fix the problem? No. What's the problem? Well, the input is changing in the firing hand as you try to press the trigger. Well, let's fix that problem. Like going slower or faster doesn't necessarily impact, your change in grip pressure or whatever. That's an unrelated issue. Let's focus on what the problem actually is. And to your point, I find that the solution highly individual. I've trained with, so many world class, I mean, we're literally world champion shooters over the years, and you go train with these guys and they'll tell you stuff that is like not only different, exactly opposite. Exactly opposite. Like I remember, I think at one point, I took two classes back to back. I think it was Ben Steger and Eric Raffel, right? Go to Ben's class, prep is wrong, always smash the trigger, right? Always have both eyes open, always target focus. I go to Eric Raffel. He's like, no, I prep on everything outside of 7 yards, and I also close one eye. And when I'm shooting irons, I stare at the front sight. Two world champions. It's like, oh, well, wait, what do I do? You know? And it's like, okay, well, first of all, there's more than one way to do this thing, right? That's lesson number one. And then for me, the stuff like grip, it's like, okay, lesson number two is like, well, man, if I'm teaching grip, like here's where your hand goes on the gun. But then my hands go in different places when I grip a Glock 34 versus a SIG 365 because there's simply not enough way to do it the same. There's not enough space to do it the same way on both guns. Well, then what are we doing? I'm not teaching people like anything that's worthwhile because even I can't grip these two guns the same way. So instead, what's the principles, right? What are we trying to achieve? What's the behavior of the gun we're looking for when you have a proper grip? Here's kind of an iterative, layered approach to experiment and see how you can get as close to the gun behaving perfectly for you as possible. And I think to me that's like just been a way better way to approach training, and I've seen just way better success with it over the years. So it's been cool.
Billy, do you do a lot of CQB training?
No.
Okay. All
No.
right.
So I mean CQB is a team sport.
Yep.
And I don't work on a team, right? So
Yep.
I have done it, for funsies and so forth. I have friends that, that obviously do that for a living and so forth and let me hop in with them from time to time. Are there some basic principles that I think, folks can learn in terms of like, what to do in your home and that kind of thing? Yes, I don't call that CQB. Because again, that's not, a team environment. Per se. But no,
Yep.
that's not really a huge part of my training. If someone's for me when it comes to like self-defense, that kind of thing, it's like what I need to know about CQB is that when someone kicks in my front door, I'm gonna hit the panic button and then I'm gonna get behind my bed and lay my AR over the top of it with my mod light. If they come in, I'm gonna press the trigger a lot of times in a row really fast. Like, I don't need to like know room clearing like super good to be able to do that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my take on civilian CQB, if you will.
Yeah. So with your minimal CQB training, do you think competition shooting will make you better at tactics, in your opinion?
Well, what's inarguable is that having the hard skills at a high level of subconscious competence will make you better at any kind of shooting, to
Hmm.
include tactical shooting. And in a situation like actual CQB or whatever it is, frees up that mental bandwidth to actually focus on the problem solving piece, right? What you're actually doing. So I think so for sure. I also think again, this isn't really my lane, but my buddies that have come up in now the do that kind of stuff for a living, but have now come up in the competition side. It's really funny to see them start doing things that are straight out of the competition world, like in the house, and actually see in some cases where it works. Obviously, the context is different. I'm not saying everything is ported over one for one, but Christian, I've seen my buddies do like three-step entries into a doorway, and I'm like, yes, that's great. That kind of stuff. That's like super granular, high level competition stuff. That in certain situations gets ported right into that other side as well. So yeah, I think so for sure.
Yeah, I think Pranka's got some pretty good thoughts on competition and a lot of like the CQB stuff that he's got a background in.
Absolutely. I love, Matt is such a rare resource in that he can talk about
Hmm.
both worlds at the
Yep.
highest levels, essentially being a grandmaster in what I do and definitely being a grandmaster in what he does, even though that's not like a real thing, like he definitely would be, right? And so he's an invaluable resource to I think to point people to just as
Hmm.
somebody that can do that. Like there's very few people alive that can talk about those two things at the highest level from a
Yep.
place of actual experience, right? So yeah, super cool.
All right. Let's move on to the next question. What are some of the most frustrating things you see both as instructor and competitor?
Quirks or
Ooh,
things that kind of bother you. Yeah.
things that bother me. I probably honestly as an instructor, right? This is probably my biggest pet peeve. Um, in terms of what I see in the training space, I, there's this idea in the training space that especially like lower level or like newer shooters like aren't ready to be told the real truth about shooting. Like I could teach them how to do this thing, but they aren't ready for that. So I'm gonna tell them this other thing first. And it's like, man, I constantly see people like being taught things that aren't like really true, almost on purpose. And in some cases, it's going to send you down like the wrong way or path in training for like years, you know. And at that bothers me. I'm like, dude, give me the real stuff and let me figure it out. So yeah, obviously, I think when you're teaching newer folks, like the kind of like footwork stuff, Christian, I know you were just in class that I'm teaching to GMs and stuff. Am I going to teach someone who's brand new that stuff? No. I'm just gonna teach them, hey, have the gun up early as you come into a position, right? That's the main thing to know, right? We're gonna work on that. Have the gun up early. That's all you need to know. Work on that piece, right? But I try really hard not to teach anything that is any different from what I teach to high level shooters. Like it's the same stuff. It's just like a simpler, more basic approach. I don't teach anything that I actually disagree with for any level, you know? And to me, that's a way better approach, I think, for sure. Um, as a competitor, what's frustrating? Um, I don't know, man. The thing that comes to mind because I had like a super recent experience with this in Area 1 is like it's a tough thing. We obviously are in a volunteer sport where our matches are all staffed by volunteers, and I have huge respect for folks that are, taking so much time out of their lives. Like I can't afford to do that. I've got places to be. I can't take 6 days, to go work a match. And so nothing but appreciation for those guys. And 98% of them are phenomenal. And then man, every once in a while I shoot a match and there's like there's always that squad that's just like out to get competitors, literally. It's that kind of an attitude of like, what can I do to ruin this guy's day? And that's always a little bit frustrating when you encounter that. So I'll throw that one out there, but that's yeah, obviously not frankly not a huge issue in the sport, but it's top of mind because I definitely had a little bit of that at Area 1 for sure. Had to reshoot one stage 3 times. Uh, I'm on my first stage today on day 2 at Area 1, and to just reshoot it 3 times in a row. I'm like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. But,
Share the details.
uh, well, one of them was not an RO issue, but the second time was probably the most interesting. So, for whatever reason, I have it on video, and I've showed it to several people, and it's laughable. I'm not planning on posting it because I'm not trying
Yeah.
to throw people under the bus or whatever. But it is super funny. I get in a start position. Are you ready? Stand by. And like nothing, right? And about 5 seconds in, like I start leaning a little bit, and like eventually I like kind of step out of position, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that. I go and I step back in a full 8 seconds after the standby command. Like once I walk back into the shooting area, he just hits the timer. And I look and I was like, seriously? He's like, yep. It's like, okay. And I just go ahead and shoot the stage. Like, you can't stand there and argue with him on the clock, So I at least go ahead and put a run down. I'm like, if you're not going to let me reshoot that after that, like, I'm calling the range master. And the range master came over and he was like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. So
Yeah.
it's like, why does it have to be like that? Like, it's like you just saw it as an opportunity to try to get somebody. Honestly, that's like the only explanation I have. And it's like it shouldn't be that way. We're all on the same team. Let's support each other and have a good community of shooters and just shoot and have fun. That's how it should be in my mind. But it's part of it sometimes.
All right. What are some most frustrating things you see as someone who posts online contents?
Yeah. Wow, there's so many routes we could go with that one. Probably the one that probably comes to mind like right off the top of my head is well, I've put 300 rounds through mine and haven't seen any issues. When it comes to gear stuff, like there's always that guy. I'm like, I don't care if you put 30,000 rounds through your gun and had no issues. Like that is anecdotal. I try not to report on stuff, that's like just my personal experience with my gun. Like, yes, I value my experience shooting something, right? But man, like just I could have gotten a really good gun or I could have gotten the lemon out of 10,000. Whether I had a great experience or a terrible experience is somewhat inconsequential to whether or not Smith and Wesson makes a great gun, right? That's purely anecdotal. What matters is like for the community as a whole, what is everyone's experience, right? And I lucky enough to get the experience to see, new 12 new guns, every weekend in class, and I see how they hold up over 1,000 rounds, right? So man, you see just hundreds of thousands of rounds, a month through guns, and you get to see what breaks and what doesn't. And it's like, man, I'm just telling you, I see more acro P2s break every weekend than any other optic. And if yours works great for you, like, cool. But I'm just letting you know, this is what I see, and if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the the eye roll comment of the day you get like every day, on the internet, I think right now is, well, mine's like, yep, I hear you. I hear you. Whatever, man. You do you. I'm just reporting what I see. That's it. But part of it again.
Why do you think it is that whenever you post a shooting video, all of the experts come out of the woodwork to correct you?
Yeah, great. I honestly don't see that too much. For me personally, um, it's one of those things though. Because I try to be careful with that. Obviously, I see shooting videos on the internet every day that I could correct for sure, right? And I think some people are maybe some people are genuinely trying to be helpful. There's definitely part of that, but something I learned super early on. It's like I don't offer unsolicited advice. Like it's just you never know, like who's open to that, who's not. So I really try to avoid that. I tell people all the time, like, man, if you're shooting a match with me or whatever, believe me, I'm more than happy to help coach or to give you ideas on stuff. But if you don't ask me, like, you're probably not going to hear from me because I'm going to let you do your thing. Um, but yeah, on the internet, I think there's some people that are genuinely trying to be helpful and just aren't necessarily seeing it from that perspective. There's also obviously the other thing where they're not trying to be helpful and they're just trying to, just throw shade at anybody that they see. And there's that piece too, and that's just part of the internet these days. So it's hard sometimes hard to tell which is which. Um, but I always try to assume the best and be like, yeah, man, thanks, man. Appreciate your thoughts, when you do see it. And sometimes, to be honest, like you get criticism on the internet, you're like, actually, yep, you're right. I'm going to take something from that. Other times you're like, well, that's clearly not right. And I'm just going to put that in the discard pile and not let it affect you, right? So you just kind of have to sort those things as best you can.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I don't understand why people be hating on the P320 so much when you're supposed to carry without one the chamber, you know what I mean?
That's what the manual says.
It says it right there in the manual, man. If you didn't listen, I don't know what to tell you, man.
So you're saying Team Sig does that now, right? They all
I
do rack one right
guess.
before the
I
buzzer goes off.
guess. I guess.
All
Yeah.
right, Christian.
Or
It's yeah, go ahead and ask your question. You guys keep on talking. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
cool.
Yeah, so Billy, now so this is kind of a fun question for you.
Okay.
The bill drill. So not named after
Yeah.
you,
Nope.
but you have a pretty good history with it. Can you tell us, what do you know about the history of the bill drill and what's kind of been your experience with it?
Honestly, in terms of history, man, not only do I not know much, but like the record is different. I mean, in terms of like the history of it, depending on who you ask. I've heard at least three people claim to invent this thing, so I won't
Same.
I won't
Same.
get into the history of it too much. But I mean, obviously, like the idea is 6 rounds from the holster at a very like forgiving distance. Is the 7 yards, which is pretty forgiving. So it's essentially the draw and the splits is like what it is, right? Which happens to be like two things that I probably spent way more time than I should have, early on. To be fair, if anything, on the tactical and defensive side of the house, maybe like the draw and also shooting like up close targets is like more of a thing than it is for us in competition. But there was definitely a period of my life where I bought into the whole defensive shootings or inside of 7 feet or like whatever it is. And I was spending a lot of time on 3 yard targets, just figuring out how fast can I get this gun out of the holster and how fast can I split this thing, and developed, some level of expertise with those two things. So it was so funny. I was talking with some guys today about how important it is to have guys out there to push you if you want to get better. And with something like the build drill, like as far as I knew, I didn't have that for a while. So I mean, I went into the first nationals where they had a build drill competition with a PR probably in the 140s. Like it's the best I'd ever done. And
Just
I
quick
was,
quick note for the audience watching. 140 is insane. Okay, so like under 2 seconds from the holster is considered by most to be very good. My
yes.
personal best like 1.98 from concealment. 140 is insane. Most people cannot draw a pistol that fast.
Right. Totally fair. Yeah. Great point. I'm not trying to act like that's not good. But it's just interesting how your perspective changes, right? Because I went in thinking 140 was like the best in the world. I'm thinking like I don't in a time I've just never seen anyone beat this. Like literally, right? So I'm thinking I'm just gonna walk into this build drill competition and I'm just gonna like shoot a 140 and I'm gonna leave. And it's gonna be and I do. I go in there and it was unlimited tries, right? But I went in there, you had to pay for each try though. It's the way they did it. And I paid for like two attempts. You every $10 or whatever it was got you two attempts, and I shot a 140 and I just left. I'm like, yep, that's gonna do it. I got this thing in the bag. And some dude by the name of Isaac Lockwood shows up and beats it
Yeah.
by a couple hundreds. I'm like, who is this guy? Literally never heard of Isaac before. And so I go back and I shoot, I think a 135 PR, right? Just the pressure of being there and knowing that somebody just shot like a 139 or whatever was enough for me to get a PR. And that's that again, like already, like we're pushing to things we didn't think were possible. And so I go back and just because of the schedule, the way it was, I go back, I do that the morning of the last day of nationals, and I go and I'm shooting the rest of the day. And halfway through, like shooting my match, I'm trying to focus on the match. Someone comes back, Isaac just shot a 120, whatever. And I'm like, no way. Like I didn't even know that was possible. Trying to focus on the match. Didn't have a chance to go back and even try again. But I'm fairly confident at that year I didn't have a 120 in me. I don't think I could have done it. But man, like we go back and for the next year, I'm like, guess what I know is possible now, you know? And man, I shot the next year. I mean my PR the next year was a 110. Again, this is just months after I didn't know a 120 is possible. But just now knowing things, like I'm like, okay, we're pushing to new heights. We're doing things differently. And yeah, they did it cool last year. So Isaac at this point, reigning champion, so you went in and had a chance that the next nationals build drill match to basically unlimited tries in the qualifier, and then we would go head to head, whoever was going to do it in the final. So I literally show up. I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show up. I'm going to set what I once again assume is a winning run. Turned out to be correct this time, but at the first morning of nationals, and then I'm not gonna have to think about it again for the next 3 days. It was my strategy. So I think I kind of ruined it for the sponsors, unfortunately, because not my intention, but I showed up, shot a 123 clean the first morning and left. And like not a whole lot of people made attempts after that. I think just because they were like, oh, well, I can't do that. But yeah, fortunate enough to go against, Isaac there in the final and won that one. And so they haven't really done it again. They haven't done a nationals build drill match like that again since. Um, and so I miss it. I wish they do it again, but that was a lot of fun for those couple years. So we Isaac and I had a good time going back, and we're both team howitzer guys now, so we shoot together pretty regularly, and it's always cool seeing the stuff he pulls off on the internet, what shenanigans he gets up to. It's pretty cool.
He is crazy fast. You were talking about the Lockwood 4x4.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
If you guys don't know what that is, go look it up. Lockwood 4x4. There's actually a video of you and Isaac doing a build drill shoot off. Wow, that when was that?
yeah. Well, so we've done two now, really, in terms of like side by side.
Hmm.
So again, that year at the nationals
Hmm.
match, I won the qualifier, and then he and I
Hmm.
went head to head, side by side for the final, right? And I won that one by a little bit. And then we did come back and we did another head to head thing a few months after that, and we were both embarrassed. It was one of those things, man. So shooting those kind of splits, like we're eh, all sub 15 splits for that kind of pace, right? Usually when you want at least like a couple tens in there type thing. Well, your tension level for that is just absolutely crucial. You've got to bleed off that tension in the firing hand to get that kind of trigger finger dexterity. Well, we show up in the next one, handgun nationals that year was, I think it was October or November. It was later in the year, and there wasn't a qualifier. I wasn't even shooting the match. I didn't have a limited optic gun, but um, Shooting USA reached out and they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you to come back and shoot this." I'm like, "Word, yeah, I'll drive up for the day and shoot some build drills, fine." And so it was one of those things. Again, I literally showed up to that match and shot I shot a 110 on site there in Cardinal in practice before the match, right? Well, then we show up and the temperatures just dive. And it wasn't what you would think of crazy cold. I think it was like 40s or 50s or something, but it was just cold enough to where you start feeling that stiffness in the hands, right? Isaac goes up first. Again, one of the best, greatest bill drill shooters in the world, literally, right? Shoots, I think we had 6 attempts. And it was funny, John with Shooting USA. He's like, we want you guys really going back and forth. So as soon as you get one clean run, the next guy goes, and we're gonna go back and forth. We're not gonna let you shoot all 6 in a row. Well, Isaac shoots 5 in a row, doesn't have one clean yet, and we're like, what's going on? You know, finally shoots the sixth one clean, and it's like a 170 something. I don't even know, but I'm sitting here thinking, there's no way he's gonna let me walk away with this, having shot a 170, you know. I think he had like a 174 or something. I just didn't even realize, even I didn't realize that time how much the cold was going to impact the speed, you know. And I go up and I think I shoot 6 in a row, and my sixth one was like a 176 or whatever, you know. Like I let him walk away with it actually at that pace, you know. But I think we were both just embarrassed. Like we both walked away, like, can you not post this? Like that was terrible. Um, yeah, the cold just affected the hands a little bit on that one, and then unfortunately that's the last build roll competition we've ever done, like of any kind. I'm like, we have to you guys are gonna let us like just live with that, like you're not gonna let us come back, but they haven't done one since, so hopefully there's another one at some point.
What's your personal best for a bill drill? And currently, what
Yeah,
would you
that
say is
110.
like this 110?
Yeah,
Do you know anyone who has beaten that?
I don't. I don't. And Isaac is like trying right now, I think, to
Mhm.
do sub-second. That's like the goal. It's it's theoretically possible, but
Hmm.
it would be insane. Um, I mean, you basically have to, let me think about it. If you put 5, 10 splits together, that's a point 0.5. So technically you literally have to do a sub point 0.5 draw to 5, 10 splits in a row to get sub second is essentially the math. Now we both do sub point 0.5 draws. We both do 10 splits and under, but man, stringing it
Hmm.
together like that is insane. So if there's anybody to do it, he's in contention for sure. But I'm frankly not pursuing it super hard right now. Like I have other things to do than just sit here and shoot builders all day. But it would be really cool if somebody pulls it off eventually. That would be wild. But we'll see if it ever happens.
I got a question. So when you did the 1.10 build
Yeah.
drill, right? Do you actually see the dot go up and down, or do you just point and shoot it?
Yeah, so this may be a little bit esoteric for some folks, but
Mhm.
it's the best way I know how to explain it, right? So there's a difference between what you see and what you react to.
Mm,
So in other words, like obviously, I think that would probably like a 0.48 draw, something like that. At that pace, if I told you that I waited to see that the dot came up on the draw and was in the middle of the A zone and then decided to press the trigger based upon where I saw the dot land, I would be lying. Like there's no way. That's not possible, right? However, so I basically shot just whenever the gun got to full extension without seeing anything. However, if your eyes are locked onto the middle of the target and that first shot is an alpha, that means the dot was there. And
mhm,
therefore, like it's very hard to not see it.
mm,
So, like, yes, like in retrospect, I'm like, yes, I saw the dot every time.
okay.
But that didn't determine when I pressed the trigger. Like I was shooting predictively, right? I'm shooting hoping the gun's going to be there, basically, right? But yeah, because it landed in the right spot every time, did I actually see the dot come back? Like, yes. Like, looking back, I can say yes, I saw it every time. But you're shooting predictively, like so you're not waiting around to see it before you press the trigger. You're just pressing the trigger as fast as you can. Does that kind of make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. The reason why I'm asking because I'm pretty sure there will be people in the comments doubting that. Oh yeah, this guy he just got lucky. You know what I mean?
Oh well,
So
in a
yeah.
sense, they're right. In the sense of, I can't do multiple 110s in a row. At least I never
Yep.
have. Now I have posted videos doing multiples in the 120s back to back, like when I'm actually practicing that, like and I'm tuned up. I seriously doubt I could do multiple 120s in a row right now. Um, but I think the difference there is kind of this, right? So people ask, I mean, I think Christian can tell you that kind of like my goal for like when I shoot the Billy Drill Standard, an example, I get one chance to shoot a 7 yard build drill as a part of a greater thing. Got to be all alphas, pretty much. Like my kind of goal for a like a class demo pace, if you will, is like in the 160s. Right. But that to me, like in that kind of pace is like what is on demand and repeatable for me in terms of a 7 yard on demand thing. And people ask, hey, how do you get to where like a 160 is on demand and repeatable? And it's like, well, the fastest way to do that is to figure out how to shoot a 140. You know, if a 160 is your PR, like there's no chance you're gonna do it back to back to back consistently. Like that's not gonna happen. But if a 140 is your PR, yeah, you can probably do a 170 like pretty repeatably, right? So it's like, yeah, guess what? The first time you pull off a clean 120, was that a certain degree of luck? Yes, because you can't do it on demand
Yep.
consistently cold. But still figuring out how to at least get to where you can pull that off every once in a while will make what people don't think is possible to even do all of a sudden feel super controlled and consistent,
Hmm.
right? So I think there's value to pushing the limits for sure and like doing crazy stuff like that, even if it's not repeatable, because it makes your repeatable level like even better, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, and I definitely agree with you because I have only successfully did the build drill 3 times, and
Okay.
I don't claim to be able to do the build drill. So I always tell people I can't do the build drill even though I only did it 3 times. Yeah,
Successfully mean as in like successfully
like
under two or
yeah, yeah,
okay.
under two. Like
Right.
I can't do it consistently, so I would
Right.
consider myself like yeah, I can't do a build drill under two
Sure.
second. Yeah.
Sure.
But
Yeah. That's
I
fair.
could do it consistently in like 2.3 or 2.4 around there, but
Yeah.
not under two. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I call that successful. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no, some people will try to claim the standard. Like a build drill is shooting it clean under 2 seconds. I'm like, there's no line. There's no line. Are you saying if I shoot a 205 from concealment with an iron sight, snub nose, that's unsuccessful? No.
Mm.
Right. So there's all
Yeah.
kind of variables that go into that in terms of skill level, in terms of equipment, all that stuff. Conditions, like I just talked about, right? How freaking cold are your hands? That there's so many variables to what makes a good run.
Yeah.
Um, to me, I always just tell people, man, the standard you're trying to beat is whatever you did last time. It's like if your PR is a 230, like your goal for today is not a 130.
Yeah.
It's a 129. And just always trying to get better and push that level and just to get better and track progression over time is kind of the way. So I wouldn't say you're not successfully doing a build shooting a two throw is a little bit slower than you might want it to be.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, it's just, those little iterations of getting better over time is all we can do.
So another thing that you are famously well known for is the scoop draw. And I wanted you to talk a little about it because I've been having a lot of discussions with a couple different guys about scoop draw, and
Sure.
generally the consensus among the shooting community and even a lot of top level instructors is that the scoop draw is not that important. And one of the big things about the scoop draw that that makes especially you very successful in doing that build draw is being able to just draw very fast.
Uh-huh.
But so tell us, why do you like the scoop draw, and why do you think people kind of hate on it so much?
Yeah, for sure. So, um, first of all, like what is the scoop draw, right? I think is probably a good place to start. And this is where you get in trouble sometimes. I think a lot of the debates over like whether the scoop draw is good and so on and so forth, you'd be shocked, like, how much debate I have with people over whether what I'm doing is a scoop draw or not. And it's like, I don't care. Like, call it what you want, right? I draw the way that I do because I find that it is actually more consistent in building the grip, and it's undeniably, like just objectively and empirically faster, right? So if you don't think it's a scoop draw or whatever, like cool. I don't care about the word. It's funny. When I started, I'm like, to me, there actually is some distinct differences in what I do over what has traditionally been thought of as a scoop draw, which I think makes it better. And so I started my first video I put out about it. I think I called it the scoop snatch hybrid or something, and that's a lot of words. And so everyone just always called what I do the scoop draw, and I kind of gave up at some point and then just I'm like, yeah, it's scoop draw, whatever, we'll call it the scoop. And then everyone's like, well, it's not really a scoop. I'm like, okay, which way you can't have it both ways. What do you want? What do you want? Again, I don't care about the terminology so much. But there's a couple key things, that I kind of think about for the draw. Um, and the main hallmark is what I would call the middle finger index. So instead of, especially when we're starting hands at sides, coming, up above the gun and then
Oh,
diving
actually, really
down.
quick, really
Sure.
quick. So, just for a lot of our new shooters who don't know the difference between like the traditional, I would say like the snatch draw
Yep.
versus like the scoop, do you mind demoing the difference between the two?
Yep. That's literally what I'm doing. So instead of starting with your hand, below the gun and coming up and then diving down on the beaver tail with the web of the hand, that would be kind of be like the way the draw is traditionally taught. I typically come up from below with that middle finger under the trigger guard, and that is my first touch point on the gun, is that middle finger. Why do I prefer that? Two reasons. Number one, it's a bigger target. So especially on something like a Glock, the beaver tail is not very big. And so it's kind of a smallish target. And a lot of people will struggle occasionally, coming up and coming down. And you can still, if you hit the wrong spot, land a little bit low on the gun or whatever, and still you can have a suboptimal grip. Especially when I actually randomly have a holster sitting here. When your gun's in the holster, I've got this basically this giant funnel in here. The way I think about it, the back of the holster and the bottom side of the grip, where I can just drive that middle finger into the intersection of those two angles. And even when I'm not looking at the gun or I'm starting from a different start position, like hands up or whatever, or if I put my belt on, it's like a different spot where the gun's not exactly where I expected it to be. Using that middle finger index and just driving it into the intersection of those two angles is like, it's almost impossible to miss that first index on the gun and get that first touch point to be consistent every single time. So, and where this idea came from for me was actually from like concealment, from appendix, right? And a lot of times when we shoot from appendix, like we don't do the stab the thumb in behind the gun to build the grip thing because it's like there's your body's pressed against the gun there. And it's so much easier to get jammed up and cause issues. So, man, from concealment years ago, and that was the vast majority of the work that I was doing, I started doing that middle finger index, even from concealment, right? Coming up under the trigger guard with that middle finger and touching there and going from the draw. So for me, that's just a better, more consistent way to build the grip, especially if you're working with, again, something like a Glock that doesn't have a big beaver tail. You can go now not only with the middle finger, but to the claw grip, where that thumb is over like where the rear sight would be. And when you clamp down with that thumb, if I have the wrong wrist angle or whatever, when I clamp with the thumb, it pulls the hand up high on the grip and really seats the grip and makes it super consistent that way. So like to me, even if you're not really scooping at all, that middle finger approach, which used to be kind of used with the scoop, is a really good way to build a super consistent grip on the gun. So we can start there. From there, from a hands at sides or like a wrist below belt, gamer style start position. The other advantage is it's just so much more efficient. Instead of starting with your hand, essentially below the gun, coming up, coming back down, and coming back out of the holster, I can now essentially just bring that hand up straight into the gun and go right through the gun, right up out of the holster. And the momentum of that hand just never stops at all. So that piece, again, from a hand to start position, probably going to save you 1 or 2 tenths off of like a really dialed in snatch draw. Like just because you're not spending any time building the grip while it's in the holster. You can basically, like when you're really tuned up, just come like straight through the gun as it's coming up out of the holster. And it's just a little bit more efficient that way, right? Even if that sounds sketchy, or maybe you're like running a race holster again, where that is a little bit more sketchy, that kind of thing. And you still want to build the grip while it's in the holster. Like I always recommend to people like try the middle finger index. Like to me, it's just a much more consistent way to like get the grip to land on the pistol every single time. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the draw there. But again, I tell people all the time, like doing like a snatch draw or building your grip off the beaver tail, definitely not wrong. Like to your point in terms of how important it is. I mean, I think you're giving up probably 2 tenths, right, over the scoop. How important is 2 tenths on the draw? Well, in the context of say nationals, like USPSA nationals, you might have the ability to like stand still in the start position and draw straight to a target without moving once or twice out of 20 stages. Like most of them are going to require you to move off the draw to where you're not doing, a sub-second draw or anything like that anyway. So how important is the draw at nationals? Not much, to be totally honest. Like you're saving maybe half a second grand total for the match. Do I want that half a second on my side? Sure. But like, is that like a real like game changer for the top guys? Frankly, no. Right? Not that big of a deal. If anything, almost like you could argue that draw to first shot might be more important for your defensive guys, right? Especially law enforcement, where they're in situations so often where they're like, this, I'm very close to somebody. Things might go hairy in a hurry, but I'm not in a situation where I'm justified to like point guns at people yet. And even if I am, if I pull this gun, like it might just escalate things. And then all of a sudden, gun shows up and you've got to skin that smoke wagon, right? And get shots on target super, super quick to survive that thing. Man, all of a sudden, man, actually, a fast draw might matter even more in that kind of context, you know. So and it does work. I've got videos on it. It's kind of tough to show right now, but even from retention holsters, you know, I've demoed, you know, sub 0.5 draws from level 2 holsters and that kind of stuff too. So it's also possible to do with retention holsters and stuff too. So that's the short and sweet version, I guess.
Do you have those videos posted somewhere? Because I'm gonna go look for it. One of our friends, he was asking about that. He says, "Oh, scoop draw doesn't work for Safari Land level 2 or 3s," and I was like, I know there's dudes who can do it. I don't know where the videos are off the top of my head.
It's been a few years. I'm nearly certain that I show at least showed some work from retention
Mhm.
in the main scoop draw. It's like a 30-minute video or something like I talk too much, but on my YouTube channel that really dives into scoop draw. I'm almost certain. I also have it on Instagram. I've got a bunch of videos on Instagram about different things that people ask about all the time, but Instagram sucks. It's just hard to find stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a backup YouTube channel that I may just like start taking a bunch of my Instagram videos, even though they're like portrait and like not as high quality, and just like dump them on that channel so that people can find stuff like that a little bit easier because it's searchable. But yes, they are out there, and if folks want them, I can send them to you.
Oh, definitely,
Hit me up.
definitely. I think that would be good. I reference your stuff a lot, and I think one of the big takeaways that I got from your class is like when we were talking about scoop draw in the class,
Mhm.
I couldn't get it to work for me because
Okay.
one of the things that, well, okay, I can now, but before your
Mm.
class, I was trying to practice scoop draw because you talk about it so much and you talk about it on your podcast a lot, right? And I just
Okay.
couldn't get it to work for me before taking your class. And then one of the things that you said that really clicked for me is you were talking about drawing the same way they draw appendix. And
Yeah.
so when I took Scott Jedlinski's Modern Samurai Project class, Scott, he talks about how when he draws, he likes to go thumb to rear sight. And so I started doing that.
Hmm.
And I realized that when you do thumb to rear sight, it creates a really good index point. So you get that good high grip because a lot of times you get a lot of inconsistencies where you're not high up on the gun. And so when I started doing that, that worked for me for appendix. And then when you said
Yeah.
that during class, it clicked for me. I'm like, okay, I'm just doing an appendix draw now from the holster on the side. And so as I started doing that, I took a video yesterday, so I was able to do like 6 yards, like 5, 6 in a row, sub-second draws, all alphas, and effortlessly, right? So I wasn't trying to run it fast. I was just trying to run it consistently, and it started to really click for me. And so yeah, I really appreciate you teaching that in class.
Yeah.
Do
That's
you
super
do
cool,
you
man.
do you think that more people are going to start doing this now? Because I know you're talking that you were teaching Matt Pranka to do this, and he was having a good time with it.
I mean, first of all, more people are doing it. I mean, there's obviously a ton of guys now that I see doing it. Even high level like GMs and stuff in competition. Like it's definitely taken off for sure. You know, is it ever going to be a situation where everyone's doing it? No, you know, maybe not. Again, I'm not even suggesting that everyone needs to do it or it's going to best for everyone. Like, you know, look, it's more difficult to do with like a Shadow 2 for sure. Are the guys that do it? Yeah. My buddy, I think we may have mentioned him already. I think we were talking about Glocks. Tyler Meisenheimer, when he was running Shadow 2s, like it's funny. I said, whenever I hear somebody wanting to learn it from learn the scoop draw with a Shadow 2, I've got a slow motion video I took of Tyler at a match and I sent it to him like this is the guy to look at for that kind of gun, you know, because I mean I play around with it, but I don't run big beaver tail guns. But they said, yeah, you know, look, if you're telling me, hey man, I've got like a super light race holster and I'm running like an open gun and I'm just worried when that middle finger touches the gun, I might accidentally dump the gun out on the ground. And therefore, I'm not going to do a scoop draw. Word. Yeah, do you, man? Like, great. I got no problem with that. Like, you've got a good explanation for it. You've got a reason. You're like, I'm willing to give up that 2/10 on the draw to be a little bit more secure building the grip because of my equipment. I got no argument with you at all, So like, I'm not saying everyone has to do it for sure, but if you want to be a couple tenths faster, this will help you. It's a thing. So it's just, do you want to put a little bit of time into to kind of learn it? And that's the whole thing.
Do you think hand size matter when it comes to a scoop draw?
I don't think so. What are you getting at? That's an
Um,
interesting question.
I don't know because I struggle with it. Maybe just because I haven't tried enough, but I feel like okay, so I do wear large size gloves, okay, but I
Same.
feel like I still struggle with the scoop draw, having my thumb going over uh to the left side.
Interesting.
But maybe it's
Yeah,
just because I don't
almost.
practice enough.
Yeah, almost certainly not a hand size thing.
Okay.
To be totally honest with you, biggest thing I would give you to just think about, like, so in terms of the way to learn it, especially is like in terms of how your hand approaches the gun. Like the way I would get into the start position, like go ahead and just put your hand on the gun, build that grip the way that you want it, and then when you take your hand off the gun, like don't change anything.
Mm,
I just take your hand like this and then put it down a little bit below the gun and come straight up without changing anything in your hand. Because if
mm,
you go to change something, you don't approach the gun properly. Say if I approach the gun and I wrap my fingers a little bit too much, like I can come up like this, and now there's no room for my thumb to come around, right? So the best way to figure out how should my hand approach is just like start with your grip and then lower it a little bit below the gun, and that without changing anything, it just comes straight up, and it should hit a little bit better for you.
okay. I'm gonna try that.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, actually, and kind of continue on with that idea. You can shoot really crazy fast splits. So for me, like when I was first practicing my build drill, I was struggling to go under a 0.2 second split. So for
Okay.
those who do you don't know what I'm talking about, right? So that's shot to shot, 0.2 seconds. So it's about like the fastest I could go. And then I started watching more like Stager, and I was watching your stuff, Billy, too. How you're talking about how what I was doing is I was having too much firing hand tension. I didn't realize that, when you have too much tension in this hand, when you're gripping too hard, it actually slows down your trigger finger. And then once I started relaxing tension on this hand, then now I'm into the 18 splits, and then I'm into like the 16 splits. So
Awesome.
going on to the idea of splits, how important is fast splits for competition or even defensive shooting?
Yeah, great question, right? Um, it's so funny. Again, it's one of those things that I'm known for, and you probably saw like the first demo I did in class was the slow splits demo, right? It's like, okay, again, I think sometimes we take away some of the wrong data from competition, which is a shame because that's a great thing we can take away from competition is data about what you need to work on in your shooting. But we'll see, hey man, I'm 6 seconds behind, on the stage or whatever, and you're like, man, how do I shoot 6 seconds faster? And it's like you're not. Like what's a to your point, you improved from a 20 split to a 16. That may not sound like much. People don't know what you're talking about. That's huge. Like that's a big delta. To improve 400s on a split like that, especially when you're kind of fast already, that's big stuff. And it's like, okay, well, how much time did you gain on the stage though? There's 14 targets. You gained 400s per target. That's what, like half a second or something. Like it's not that crazy, right? So it's not that much in terms of time on the stage to improve, even if you improve every single split on the stage by a tenth or something. Like you're only getting so far. You're not making up 6 seconds. I can tell you that right now. 6 seconds is coming from all the time in between the shooting, gun handling, transitions, movement, right? So are splits super crucial in competition? Not really, right? A lot of the world national champion level guys. I mean, I'll say this. I know. I'm trying to think. Maybe I can think of maybe one of them, Christian, right? Can split the gun pretty hard. Eric can't split the gun as fast as I can. Best shooter to ever live, right? And would crush me at any match, certainly we've ever shot so far. Hopefully I'll get there one day, right? But like, so yeah, I mean, do you need 10 splits to win nationals? No, not at all. Not at all, right? It's one of those things I tell people all the time. People is like, well, I'll put up video about splits or whatever, and it's like people are like, it's not that important. I'm like, yep, I agree, by the way. But if people come to me and are like, hey, we see you got the splits, can you teach us how to do that? I'm like, also, yes. If that's something you want to work on, I will help you with it 100%, right? I've got a system for it. Defensive shooting, again, that's where it's a little bit more uh, tough to answer because I can't tell you how good do you need to be to survive a lethal force encounter. Can't tell you that, right? Is it ever bad to be too good? I like to think no, right? And so again, am I likely to pull out 10 splits in a gunfight? No. But man, if you can run 10 split alphas at 7 yards, like to your point, all of a sudden you start, shooting 20s and you're putting them just like in the same hole because it's just like so easy. Like I'm just cruising. Like, this is not fast, So again, like shifting, like when you shift your PR or your max potential to something that's really super fast, like all it does is help you gain control at those slower speeds, um, as well. So is there some benefit to it? Sure, I think so. Yeah, 100%. Is it necessarily crucial? No, I can't say that at all. So yeah, it's just one of those things like, again, I probably frankly, I probably put more work into it at a certain point, in my training career than maybe I should have, especially for like the competition side. I never expected to make like more money shooting bill drills than I ever have shooting matches, so it paid off, in that sense. But yeah, is it like the huge priority for match performance, especially? No, definitely not.
Awesome. And actually, I just thought of this question right now, a little bit
Sure.
off topic, but I see that you're getting into 3D printing stuff, especially with the targets that you're doing. And Ku's
Yeah.
actually got some of the targets that I 3D printed for him back there. So I had a
Nice.
similar idea, but I don't have the GM level skill or understanding to really kind of expand on those. So I
Okay.
never ended up selling them or anything. But tell us about what are you doing with 3D printing and what kind of products you got out there?
It's literally dry fire targets right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's literally it. That was, and man, that wasn't even my idea. It was one of those things where, yeah, I make all this random stuff now. And it's always been, man, I wanted something better and came up with an idea, it's so fun. And then I find out that, it's a lot of times I put out information about it and people are like, I don't want to put the effort in to make this for myself. And I'm like, really? It's cool though. And they're like, no, will you just make it for me? I'm sure, that was kind of literally what happened. Like one of my first main products, like the split sauce, the gun lube thing. Like I literally made a podcast about it. I'm like, this is the ingredients to this stuff. It's so easy and it works so good. Y'all should go make this thing, right? And then my DMs just blow up, blow up, blow up. Sell me some. I'm like, okay, fine, and I start making it, and then there it is. Um, so that's the kind of thing with the dry fire. Like, yeah, nothing super crazy. Again, 3D printed. Like you said, they're plastic targets, but it's like, man, it's so much better. Honestly, it came like for me, it was better because I travel. And it's like, look, I still have cardboard and printed targets and even some like the adhesive stuff. I have stuff all over the house, great. But man, all that stuff is a pain to travel with. It really is. Like the label stuff, just all, I mean, I throw it in a suitcase, it gets all bent up and torn up and it's a pain. Same thing with cardboard. Like the cardboard just takes up space, it's super thick. And if it gets wet, it falls apart and it just gets broken and banged up in hotel rooms and suitcases and stuff where it's like, man, these like the plastic just better. Like it's super thin, takes up no space, so you can just have a stack of them really easily. And they so far, I'm not like I can't figure out how to break one. Like they just last, forever, and it's awesome. So yeah, it's been a good little side project for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I always encourage people to get into 3D printing because a lot of new gun products out there, small time guys, they're starting out with 3D printing. Especially if you guys know about like the super safety stuff, like Hoffman Tactical, like that was all 3D printed before people started making those in steel and different metals. Um,
Oh, it's all kind of good stuff, man. My
yeah.
buddy Keanu over at CSRG is making followers and
Mhm.
mag pouches that are 3D printed, and it's all great stuff. It's awesome with that kind of manufacturing and automation stuff, like how easy. And the same thing with my ammo stuff. It's all automated and stuff. It's like, man, it's so much more accessible to folks, now than it used to be. And yeah, there's all kind of cool stuff you can do for sure.
Oh, speaking about that stuff, I was going to mention to you last time we were in class. So the Ace VR stuff, Ku and I, we were doing that for a bit. I don't think Ku and I have been playing Ace VR as much, but if you ever want to, I've got a 3D scanner, and so I've been 3D scanning my guns, and so I've got weird custom guns. I've got like a Desert Eagle. I've got like Halo pistol for Ace VR. If you ever need a 3D scan of your gun, just let me know, and I can make you a custom one so you can use it in Ace VR if you ever want it.
That is cool. That
Let
is
me
cool
know.
for sure.
Let me
Nice.
know.
Yeah, I use the handset that I use is 3D printed, but it is a Glock, which is kind of close-ish. But I've not bothered to try to get an OC9 one specifically, but that would definitely be cool. And it didn't even print well. It's so funny. My handset, I just haven't bothered to reprint it. It has no trigger guard. I'm like, we're bringing it back, like just the old school like Wild West, no trigger guard hand guns. It's kind of cool, but it works fine for VR, obviously. So yeah, that's cool.
let me know, and we will make one of yours out.
Nice. That'd be awesome.
And I guess just kind of wrap things up. This is something that we ask to a lot of instructors because,
Okay.
a lot of our viewers, they have this question of, maybe they are in the middle of Wyoming or
Hmm.
some state in the Midwest somewhere, right? And there's not really a lot of big name instructors coming through. What are some of the things that you would look for as an instructor taking classes?
Yeah. Awesome. So much stuff. Honestly, like vetting instructors is difficult, right? Especially if it's, folks you're not familiar with. And by the way, it's even harder when you're less educated and less skilled. Like it's even harder, right, to tell. A few things that I look for, right? Number one, even this might be slightly controversial, but I look for good shooters, like people that are actually like, it's to me, it's a demonstration that, hey, what you teach actually works. And by the way, shooting is one of those things, like you don't necessarily, in my book, have to be a national champion or whatever. Like that takes a lot of work and time and effort, and you have to really focus on competition more than shooting, probably to become a national champion, right? But the thing about shooting is like if you know how to train and how to be good at shooting, and you care about shooting enough to put the work in, you will be good at shooting. Like there's like that's it. Like you don't have to be, some kind of freak athlete or some kind of genetic or whatever to be good at shooting. Like if you know how to be good at shooting and you work at it, you will be good. Like that's just the formula. Like that's it. So, if someone knows how to be good at shooting and they care about it, they should be good. So hey, can they actually shoot? That would be cool to see. And obviously, like if they shoot competition, that's a super easy way to tell. Like what practice score doesn't lie. Sometimes it does, but but most of it doesn't lie. Um, whether it's how they see matches, is this person a GM? Like what is it? Like that'll tell you a lot of things, right? Can they actually shoot? Even if they're posting, like a lot of people post shooting on the gram and don't show hits and stuff. But if they're shooting, and they're showing, hey, this is what we can do. Like cool, that's awesome. That's a great way to see can people actually shoot. From there, can they actually teach? This is one of the golden things about the internet, which is that every instructor I know worth their salt is posting at least some educational content. And it's like, okay, can I stand to listen to her voice for 20 minutes straight? Right. To start with, like, is this a style of communication that I can actually stay engaged with, right? And works for me in that case. And then like in terms of how they're teaching, like, okay, are they if I list even if on a video, can I listen to what they're teaching and then take it to the range and try these things and see if it works for me? And like, great, like that's a good indication of, hey, there's maybe some value in this kind of a class. That's kind of the two main approaches I would look at. It's just like real simple, like, hey man, can they shoot? Do they actually know what they're talking about? And then like again, listen to their educational content and should give you a good indication of what the class is kind of like. They may not have like a full class posted or whatever, but it should give you a good idea if they have some kind of educational content there. And those are kind of the two main ways. Um, Another really good way, and like once you that's a good way to kind of look for your first instructor. Another super good way that I like is like when I go take a class from somebody, especially if I respect them and it's a good shooter, and as I'm taking the class is good. If that instructor recommends other instructors, that to me is worth weight in gold. Um, because when you're learning, you're like, this is a really good class, and this guy's telling me who he learned from, right? Like that's a recommendation that carries a lot of weight for me. That's how I, have definitely been hooked up with some of the instructors I've trained with, is they were recommended to me by other instructors. You gotta be careful about like random reviews sometimes because you'll read reviews, and this is the same thing for me. Like I have reviews on my page that are 5 stars, like this is the best instructor of all time, and I know that person has never trained with anybody else, right? So like, how do you know I'm the best instructor of all time? Like, I mean, I appreciate it. Like, trust me, like I appreciate the kind words, but you don't know what you're talking about, So like, it's hard to when you see those random reviews sometimes on the internet to know like, okay, whether it's positive or negative. Like, does this person have any like credentials to be making this critique of a class, right? So, but man, if you got like a good instructor, like you're like, this is a good class, and they recommend somebody, to me, that carries some more weight. So that's another really good way, also.
Mm.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I know definitely in as I was starting my shooting career, taking a lot of local classes with local
Yeah,
guys, military, law enforcement, and yeah, like you were saying that, once when I was able to like outshoot them, and I'm like, okay, well, what's kind of like that next level, and I think there's kind of a stigma when it comes to competition because we think that, oh, that's only for shooting cardboard. I want to learn from like the tactical guys, and
yeah,
tactical guys are great, but not they may not necessarily have like that higher level shooting ability that you're looking for. And those are two different skill sets, and it really just kind of depends on what you're trying to get into.
100%. Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things, man. I mean, have, it's tough. I'm sure there's so many different ways you could go with it. But yeah, having a career, I think it's very fair to say having a career in military and law enforcement does not indicate shooting skill. Just having survived it, right? And it's unfortunate. We're seeing a real change, but like especially traditionally, like man, the standards for shooting, obviously in military and law enforcement for the most part, super, super low. And so there again, there's military and law enforcement guys. We talk about Matt Pranka, great example of a dude who has a military law enforcement background and is a phenomenal shooter. Awesome. You find a combination of those two things, that's really super cool. I'll go train with Matt any day of the week, right? But just because someone has a career in military law enforcement does not mean that they are necessarily going to be that good shooter or really even understand shooting or be able to teach it. So yeah, to me, that's not something that I typically am going to target. Again, it depends it also depends. I didn't talk about this. I'm trying not to ramble too long, but what you're looking to learn is part of it as well, right? Like, man, there's all kind of instructors that I can talk about. You want to go learn how to be a national champion? I can point you to some guys that will teach you how to be a national champion. You want to learn the scoop draw? Not so much, man. You got to come to me for that, or Isaac, or one of the few guys that's good at that thing, right? So it's like everyone has their specialties, and it's like there's certain things. If I want to learn that thing, okay, here's the guy I go to for that, right? But he may not be super good at teaching me this other thing too. So there's like yeah, if I want to learn about, putting cuffs on people or something about the job related to, hey, I'm going to go to one of those guys, that can teach me how to do that job. If I want to be fast and accurate, I'm going to look for, well, who's the fastest and the most accurate that I can get access to, and I'll go train with those guys. So it's kind of a different thing.
And then last question to kind of just piggyback off of that. So like I said, our audience tends to be, a lot of people who are more getting into the sport, maybe a little bit more intermediate. Who are some of the instructors that you would recommend they take classes with?
Oh, there's so many good guys, man. There's so many good guys that are around the country now doing awesome classes. I got some really good buddies. I probably mentioned first, my buddy Brennan, Gateway Defense, used to AI for me and now has his own company. I recommend him. He's doing a lot of really good stuff. And then of course the other guy from our podcast, Nick Young, is doing a lot of good stuff. Some of the guys that I've learned from the most, probably the guys I credit in my classes the most. JJ Rakaza, phenomenal. Doesn't teach that much, but if you can get in a JJ class, that's great. I tell you what, Eric as well. Very few people can get in an Eric class. That's tough. We kind of bring him into the States for an invite only class every once in a while for some high level dudes. But yeah, it's pretty hard to get a hold of Eric. But if you ever do get a chance, definitely. Still recommend Ben Steger as well. I've learned a lot from Ben. He puts on a great class. Joel's pretty solid there too, and kind of the same kind of curriculum there. Tim Herron, I would recommend. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's tons of good guys, but those are some guys that I have kind of direct experience with and put on a good class for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Ku, you got anything else?
Yeah, one last random question. Have you ever did a bill drill with a revolver?
No, honestly.
Oh, okay, so
Do
let's
you
I
have
say
haven't I
any
haven't
revolvers?
I don't. I don't. I
okay.
shot a revolver for like it was so fun. I shot a revolver randomly last year, Falling Steel World Series. Um one of there was a revolver shooter there that after we got done with the match, he literally handed me his whole belt and he's like, "Put this on and shoot this." And I shot a Falling Steel stage with the revolver. And like the worst thing with there was I was like not counting. I kept going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, click, 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 click. Oh yeah, gotta reload. And then it did it just over and over again because it's like a 40 round course or whatever. Uh, but shooting was great. I actually that would have been a revolver stage win, like cold on that stage, because the shooting's the same. But yeah, no, other than that, I haven't shot a revolver since I was probably like 15 or something. It's been a long time.
If you were to train with a revolver, right? Do you think you will beat Jerry Miculek in splits?
Oh,
I
ooh.
mean, you talking about like these days? Maybe I don't. Back in the day, I don't know. Jerry was an absolute beast.
Oh, he's so
Uh,
fast. He's
he
so
still
yeah,
is. Yeah, he still
yeah.
is. It's crazy, man. Go back and watch some. If I'm some of your problems probably aren't familiar, you can go back and still find Hot Shots episodes on YouTube, and you'll see. I mean, Jerry. going against guys like Max Michel at the World Speed Shooting Championships with a revolver and like getting close, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's unreal what that dude used to be able to do with a revolver, man. It was super super impressive for sure.
Have you seen
Yeah.
any Bob Munden videos?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
crazy stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very super crazy. Yeah. That was something else. He never did, he did some of the exhibition stuff. I
Hmm.
assume all that was real. It's hard to tell. It's a shame he never did like any like the real competition scene, like where you could actually tell for real what
Hmm.
that guy could do, like in general. But yeah, I mean, hey, I give him credit. Stuff you see in terms of the exhibition shots and stuff, it's still super impressive for sure.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our podcast. Billy, we are absolutely grateful that you're able to join us. It's been a wonderful time having you on here. Why don't you tell the audience where can they find you and your material?
Yeah, pretty much Spectrain all the places, spectrain.us for the website. I think it's Spectrain Performance on the gram and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're all over the place, man. But yeah, definitely look us up. For anything I do for anybody, got any questions anytime, I try to keep up with the DMs and stuff as much as I can. I'm always down to talk shooting. So hopefully we'll see y'all on the range sometime.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. So that's Billy. He's one of our favorite GMs, one of our favorite instructors, super down to earth guy. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
Thanks, guys.
joining us. All right, I'm gonna stop recording right now.